Before we begin, can I make a quick prediction? If your MSP had Star Trek tech, computer, make me a coffee.
Replicating your 218th coffee today.
All right, didn't ask for the guilt trip. So, what can we learn about MSP growth from a couple of Starfleet officers? Well, did you know they used to be in the IT game? The first hero in our MSP story is none other than James Tiberius Kirk. No, not that one. Or that one. Definitely not. Nearly. Yes, there he is. As we all know, Kirk was the ultimate specimen of a human. He was one of the most distinguished officers of all time, although his passion and hot-headedness often got him into trouble. I use past tense because, and I know it hasn't happened yet, but in the year 2293, he ends up having a really bad day. Anyway, let's ignore that. Imagine it's a few years earlier and he's just retired. You know, Kirk's a real man's man, so he spends all his time chopping logs by his idyllic mountain cabin. But he's got a problem. He just can't stop chopping logs. Concerned over his addiction to splitting wood, he visits his friend Dr. McCoy, who breaks some devastating news. Kirk has a huge neural parasite attached to his brain, controlling his every move and slowly dissolving his cerebellum. He's got just 6 weeks until he succumbs completely to this disgusting space worm. There is an operation, but it's expensive, and his Starfleet pension just won't cover it. So what Kirk did next was the most Kirk thing he could do. He impulsively jumped straight on his horse and rode off, looking for a new source of income. But he wasn't alone. A fellow Starfleet officer has found themselves in a similar retirement predicament. The legendary science officer and half-human has found himself on Vulcan cutting children's hair. The work is steady and reliable. However, no amount of bowl cuts will pay for that intergalactic cruise Mrs. Spock has been promised. Coincidentally, Spock has also been given 6 weeks to turn things around. He's got to get that cruise booked or he's out on his ear. Painful. They both throw themselves into whatever work comes along. Given his looks, Spock does the logical thing and auditions for a Beatles cover band, while Kirk uses his charisma to wait tables at a local space cafe. However, it's not enough. The clock's ticking and time's running out. But suddenly, with 5 weeks left to go, they both have a brainwave. Which industry could they get into that combines meeting and helping people, using their technical know-how, and making a ton of cash? They've both arrived at the same conclusion. After a few long days and several sleepless nights, their brand new MSP businesses are launched. This is big news. A civic ceremony is laid on to mark Starfleet's finest and their new ventures. But when the party's over and the initial excitement wears off, their communicators just sit there. Nobody rings. There's now only 4 weeks to go until Spock loses his wife and Kirk loses his mind. Then, all of a sudden, it's not a new client, but it is their old mutual friend and communications expert, Uhura. She has some bad news. If their situation wasn't dire enough, Uhura tells them something that rocks both their worlds. They're going to have to say goodbye to the one thing that they love, more than the Federation, their wives and Saurian brandy. Like a vintage fax machine that once buzzed and hummed with useful purpose, the old Enterprise, rusty and full of dints, has come to the end of its life. She's being sold at auction for scrap, and to make matters worse, the current highest bidder is probably their biggest enemy. If Kirk or Spock want to rescue the Enterprise and keep her out of the scrapyard, they need to find 10 million credits. If not, Khan is more than ready to strip the Enterprise for parts. But there's hope. Uhura thinks she knows how they can accelerate their managed service businesses to warp factor 11, finding new clients and making the money they so desperately need. As a communications expert, she should know what she's talking about. Kirk and Spock listen intently, glued to their space mobiles, as Uhura tells them about a simple 3-step communication strategy. 3 steps that they can start immediately. And it's the combination of the 3 steps that will deliver the best results. Step 1. build multiple audiences on various platforms. She tells them to grow an email audience by finding email addresses on business cards, websites, or anywhere else you can get them. Also, another audience, probably the most important, will be building LinkedIn connections. It only needs to take a couple of minutes each day. Who knew that in 300 years' time, we'd still be using the same platforms? Then it's step 2. Build a relationship with these multiple audiences. Send them emails, comment on their posts, put newsletters in the mail. Create your own simple content to educate and entertain them. While listening, Spock continues to write his detailed and comprehensive notes, while Kirk has mentally already started, jumping ahead, thinking about what he needs to do. Before Uhura wraps up, she impresses on them the importance of the third and final step. Without this, she says, all your efforts will be a complete waste of time. You need to commercialize your audiences. You never know when someone might be looking for a new MSP, so you need to follow them up. Get on your communicators, find out. Stop waiting for them to hail you. If they've been warmed up by your content in step 2, and the time is right, bingo, you could have found a brand new client. Kirk and Spock end their calls and immediately get to work. But who do you think has got what it takes to succeed? Will Kirk's impatient, impulsive, and fiery nature mean he'll get frustrated and go off plan? Will the cool, calm, and collected Spock have the upper hand in creating a consistent system? Well, they're ready. The groundwork has been done, the audience numbers are building, the content has been created, and it's time to make it so. With just days to spare until Starfleet's finest lose their ship. I said ship. And Kirk's brain turns to mush and Spock's wife turns to a richer man, they engage the final steps. Messages fire off on every platform. Stuff's happening. The plan feels like it's working. And now it's time to hit the communicators and make some calls. At the end of the day, as the suns set on their respective planets, the results are in, and they're
fascinating.
Yes, Kirk had fun speaking to lots of people, several warm and positive conversations. Many said they'd seen some of his useful content and were thankful for it. A few said, not right now, but let's talk again in the future. 3 calls led to Kirk booking follow-up meetings, but one call was just perfect, like it was written in the stars. The timing was spot on. The person he spoke to had literally just had enough of their old IT company and had been impressed by Kirk, and they signed up. The first payment for their migration project was just enough to blow Khan's best offer out of the water. Spock, on the other hand, has nothing. No good calls, no follow-up meetings, not even a hint of a new client. While Kirk now flies around space in his pimped-up Enterprise, the master of his own destiny, neural parasites safely removed, what does this mean for your MSP? Well, there are 2 questions for you to answer. Firstly, is your marketing warm, friendly, and appeals to people emotionally like Kirk's marketing? Your prospects don't understand tech. That's why they need you. So don't do a Spock and blind them with science. And the second question, well, after you've checked out this video on how to write more human content, answer me this in the comments. Am I the only one that can't do the Spock finger thing? For more videos to help you grow your MSP, like and subscribe, and live long and prosper.